mannequins have a tendency to have, you know, a little bit more wiry of hair. So today what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of a liquid pomade in the hair before I start cutting. I was told once that if you put a product, like a prep product, a leave-in conditioner, something in the hair before cutting it, it'll actually make your scissors last longer. I do not know if that's true or not, but I've never seen any scientific facts saying that it would, but I kind of drank the Kool-Aid and I've been doing it ever since. And also, I enjoy having a little bit of product in the hair so that I can control the hair a little bit better, so the hair doesn't move around quite as much. These mannequins, like I said a minute ago, they have fairly wiry hair, and so if I can go ahead and put something on it to coat it just a little bit, it sometimes makes it easier for me to control the hair. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to start this off with a little bit of almost a not quite a square top. It's going to be slightly rounded, but I am going to section off right around the square of the head. If you think of the head as a box, if you put a box around the head, you would end up with 4 sides and 5 corners. Okay, you would have a top side, right, left, and back. You would have the corners in the top right, top left, top back, left and back, and then back and right. So I'm going to actually find the corners of the head, which would be where the top and sides meet, and then I'm going to section off right at that corner. However, instead of making a square line for a square layer, I'm going to round through and follow around into the crown. On the opposite side, I'm then going to do exactly the same. So I'm going to comb this up, make sure my parting is nice and clean. I am one of those who's a big stickler for parting. I'm not a real big proponent for doing a lot of pre-sectioning. The pre-sectioning that I do in a haircut is just to kind of section off the top and bottom or any areas that I'm going to have some disconnection. But I don't have to have like 30 different triangles sectioned away. I kind of like to work with the hair a little more organically. So through here, I'm going to find my square once again. On the opposite side. And I now have a section that's rounding through in the back. So it's more of a horseshoe, but it is right around the corners of the head. And the reason it's at the corners of the head is because I do want to keep some width. Now, generally speaking, men have a little bit wider skulls than women do. And generally speaking, most women do not want a wide look. They usually are looking for more height on top. So in that case, if I was trying to make this a little bit slimmer of a shape, I would actually section just above the square lines. I would actually section just a touch higher. Anytime you elevate higher or section higher, the hair is going to be a little bit slimmer. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this haircut off right at the front hairline. So in classic haircutting, what you end up doing is you end up starting wherever your shortest point is, because you're going to gain length through over direction. So the way that I'll work with this is I'm going to slightly tilt away, raise him up just a little bit. I like my work to be very close to like my chest level. I like, if I've got a client, I like to basically work right in this area so that I don't have to lift my arms too much, I don't have to move my back. I do my best to stay very ergonomically correct. And so what I do is I start off with a slight diagonal back section. Okay, as I take that diagonal back section, comb that hair forward, I'm going to actually use a clip to clip this away. If I was doing this in the salon with a human, I probably would not need a clip. I would probably just tuck this behind the ear. But because it's a mannequin and these ears don't really stick out, I don't have anything to hook the hair onto. So I'm combing this hair down into just letting it fall into natural fall. I can see that the hair wants to come forward just slightly. So I'm going to cut up against that gravity. And I'm just going to take this fairly short. And these mannequins have sideburns. We will kind of work with those a little bit, but I don't really want serious, you know, chops right now. Although I do know that that new movie came out, the Elvis movie. I'm guessing that we are going to see, because of that movie, sideburns coming back in. Looking through, I've got people coming all over from the UK, from the Middle East. Thank you guys, everybody, for logging on. Please do me a favor, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Please just type them in, and as I see them come through, I will answer any questions I can. So now I've taken this off right at the hairline. I'm now going to elevate up, keeping the piece at the top slightly longer than at the bottom. So technically this is graduation, but just barely. Taking this as tight as I can. I've seen this right now. Okay, so if you think about this, if you were somebody who works in a barbershop, it's funny, I had a guy come into the barbershop to get a mullet with the gentleman right next to me, and he came in asking for a temp fade, which, started thinking about it, it's absolutely true. If you think about just taking this down to the skin and leaving this back here, it's a temp fade, even though it is technically, it ends up looking like a mullet. So in consultations, you can hear a lot of different things from clients. So I've seen this extremely short down to the skin. I've seen this longer also and kind of shaggy. Every once in a while I'll see that as well. Yeah, I'm seeing people from all over the world right now. Thank you guys for logging in. A lot of people from the West Coast. I appreciate you being up so early. I know it's only like 8 a.m. on the West Coast right now. And there are people calling in from, or dialing in from Canada, from the UK. I really appreciate all of you logging on. It's one thing I absolutely love about Hairbrained, is that it can bring together such an amazing group of people so easily, and we're able to share information so easily. Okay, so what I've done now is I've taken my second section, pulled out, cut right against the head, and then I went back through and did a slight cross check and scissor over combed off just a little bit more hair. I have a tendency to do a lot of scissor over combing. I work both in our women's salons as well as our men's salons, and I do a very large amount of female clients every week, and I do a very large amount of male clients every week. And what I have found is, even though I'm in the barber shop and I do use clippers from time to time, not from time to time, quite a bit, I feel that I really do a lot of scissor over comb work more and more and more. A lot of the guys right now are really preferring their hair to be cut with scissors as opposed to clippers, unless we're talking about hair that's going down to the skin. I personally don't ever use, it's really rare you would ever see me use a guard larger than a 2. Once in a while I'll use a 3, but usually it's a 2, or an open 2 is as high as I go with a guard. After that I usually use either scissor over comb or just use my fingers. So now I've continued to work vertically. I basically have pulled out one section straight out from the head, second section straight out from the head, third section straight out from the head. Now that I'm on my fourth section, I am working into the nape. I'm gonna move this up just a little bit so you guys can see better. So what I've done is, now my section, whereas my section was just vertical right to the ear, now I went one section past the ear, and I go all the way from my original parting all the way down to the hairline. So it's a much longer section, so I'm gonna have to cut this in multiple stages. One thing I don't like to do is I don't like to try to grab all of it and cut it at once. I will actually resection multiple times through this one section, because I never cut past my second knuckle. If you think about it, your second knuckle, between the tip of your finger and your second knuckle, you have a lot of tension. Once you get past there, it becomes extremely loose. You don't have the consistent tension, therefore your work isn't as consistent. So what I'm doing now, you can see I did my first snip, cut to the second knuckle, resection, and I'm pulling straight down. Now, I had mentioned that this was graduated at the front because this is slightly longer than the bottom. as we are moving past this bone right here, this is called your mastoid bone, where the where the head dips in. If you were using classic round graduation, which was what these sectioning would be, you would set in and you would lower your finger angle. I'm actually continuing my finger angle just straight. So instead of cutting a graduated shape, I'm cutting just a straight line. What that's going to do is it's going to maintain length in this corner, and then I'm going to use this as a stationary guide to gain even more length so that we can create that more modern mullet-like effect. So very easily just cutting straight up and down. And you can see by cutting straight up and down, because the head diminishes away, because the skull dips in and is round, I've just gained a lot of length. This hair now is significantly longer than this hair at the top. I can turn this a little bit and show you even better view of it. This hair is quite a bit longer than this at the top. So now I'm going to continue working. Diagonal back. And that last section that I just did is now going to become a stationary guide. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a trick here. So if you think about this, if you were cutting, you should be cutting just straight up and down, working perpendicular to the floor, parallel to the wall. What I tend to do, just because this hair has to over direct and it needs to lift up, I actually tilt the head forward. What that allows me to do is just change my elbow so that I'm a little more, so I'm still just working right here in my chest versus having to dip down as much. It's just less work on my body. By tilting that head forward, I now just pull this hair straight forward and I cut almost completely horizontal, and that allows it to be much easier on me, and it allows me to be much more consistent with my work. So I cut past my second knuckle, or I cut to my second knuckle, I resection, and I cut. Next section. And you can see this is a stationary guide. I'm not changing my over direction. Everything is coming to the exact same point. Alright, once again, a diagonal back section, combing this forward, and all of this hair, I'm going to keep working until I get past the center back. Everything is going to come over to this side in this exact same spot. So from here, I'm pulling straight. Stationary guide combing up, combing down into my guide, and cutting. Now I haven't seen, has anybody got any questions that I've missed so far? No, I'm just getting a lot of people saying hello and a lot of people watching. But so far, oh, somebody did ask me a little bit back to come a little closer. See if I can't get the little bit easier for you to see that way. And then once again, stationary guide. And you should be able to see your guide very cleanly. Okay, so from here, I now have very short to quite long. And you can see this has gained quite a bit of length in the back. I'll take one last section just to go past the center back. So as I take this last section, if I turn this mannequin around, you can see I'm well past the center back. I'm bringing all this over. I'll bring everything back to the opposite side as well. That way, it ends up being a little more, it'll be just, I know that I've gotten everything cut. I don't want to miss any hairs whatsoever. Get him to be a little more visible for you. Right here. Cut to my second knuckle, resection. This is a lot of hair at this point, so you want to make sure that you're sectioning very cleanly. I like to use both the wide and fine teeth of the comb so that I know that I have all of the hairs combed very clean. I don't want to miss anything. So at this point, we have finished the first side, and we're gonna flip him around to do a mirror image on the opposite side. You can see this has gained a lot of weight and length in the center. You can see right through here, it's gained a lot, but I'm gonna come cut back the opposite way so that it'll take that point off. And then, so now on this side, once again, I'm gonna take a vertical section, diagonal back, not even that big, a little bit smaller, slightly diagonal back, letting this hair comb in, or fall into natural fall. So I just kind of comb this hair down, let it fall, and I'm going to take this hair away. And I might come back, I'll probably come back over this with the trimmers just to take it a little bit closer, but really I don't need to go, I don't have to fade this in per se. All right. Man, I have got a ton of people from across everywhere. Thank you everybody for saying hi and tuning in. It's great to see everybody. Really appreciate all of you. So from here, I'm taking this piece at the top and I'm cutting down. Taking it as tight as possible here by the sideburn. And then see which way is best for you guys to see. Maybe if I move around here. So now, once again, I'm taking a diagonal back section. So what I'm taking is vertical section and now working up. So what I tend to do, this is my general rule, and everybody can have their own rules for this, but I feel the easiest way for me to cut hair when I'm working is for my thumb to be pointing in the direction that I'm moving. So what I mean when I say that is I'm starting here at the front hairline and I'm working to the back. That means I'm moving to my right. As I'm moving to my right, I want my thumb to be pointed in the direction of the right. So I flip my fingers over and I push, and then going straight up and down with my fingers pointed down. Whereas on the opposite side, I was working from the right to the back. So I was moving to the left. I wanted my thumb pointed towards the left, so my fingertips went up. So to make that a little bit more ergonomically correct for me, I will turn this guy and tilt him just a little bit. Take a diagonal back section. And I'm going to cut straight up and down. Because the head diminishes away because of the roundness of the head, it is slightly graduated. but I'm really just cutting straight up and down. That straight up and down line is what makes us have such a good bit of length in the back once we make it a stationary guide, once we get to the mastoid bone. All right, so now I've done 3 sections, and with my 4th section, I'm working all the way into the nape. And just like on the opposite side, I'm going to cut straight up and down. I'm not going to graduate into the nape. I'd mentioned this on the other side, the head diminishes down. Once you get to this bone, the mastoid bone, the head dips in. So a lot of times if you were cutting a classic man's haircut, you would dip in as well so that it goes a little tighter into the nape. We're creating just a straight line. By creating a straight line, we end up gaining more length down at the bottom. Therefore, we start the beginning of that mullet effect. So I pull that out. See, I'm cutting straight up and down. I'm just cutting a straight line. I'm not graduating in at all. And just like on the opposite side, because of that, because this is a straight line, this hair here is shorter than this hair here at the bottom. Once again, I'm going to work past the center back. Another section. I'd mentioned this probably 17 times on the opposite side. I'm going to say it once again here. I don't cut past my second knuckle, and since I don't cut past my second knuckle, I need to resection multiple times through this section because this subsection is quite long. You know, my fingers are not nearly as long as this section, so I'll cut 1, 2, 3 different times. Here, you can see my sectioning is still, it's completely parallel to the front hairline. If the front hairline is just slightly diagonal back, it's just worked following the hairline the entire way and then became a stationary guide right here. Okay, and now you can see I'm getting a good bit of a mullet back here. And this hair from the opposite side, which I pulled over to the right, to my right side, I'm now bringing this all over to the left side. what I'm gonna now do is I'm now gonna take out that point in the center. So I'm actually going to come back through and I'm gonna cut this vertically now. I'm gonna take all the hair on the right, clip that away, take a vertical section, pull this out, keeping all of the length at the bottom, but flattening out this top. So essentially what's happening is, you know, a mullet means it's longer in the back. It doesn't really kind of, isn't very balanced. What we're doing right now is we're taking some of this back off here in the center so that the weight is more towards the corners versus weight being all in the center back. I find it just looks a little more flattering as it hugs the head if we just flatten this out. So essentially we have a flat line like so and a flat line like so, but it's created an exaggerated corner. So that ends up leaving quite a nice mullet-y like feel. Opposite side, doing the same thing, bringing all of this into the center. Now I still have just a little bit of a point in the center. I'm going to tilt him forward, comb this hair down, and just cut that point off. So now we have a bit of an exaggerated square. From here, before I move on to the top, I'm just going to refine the front hairline. So the way that I'm going to refine this front hairline is actually with my trimmers. Just kind of come up against the sideburn. I'm just kind of clippering up with a bit of a C shape. And then on my opposite side, same thing. And then taking off a bit of the sideburn. Bring this up. And back down. Okay. So now we're going to move on to this top. So what we've done, just to reiterate what we've done, we started at the front hairline. Slightly diagonal back vertical sections, worked all the way to the mastoid bone, created a stationary guide, brought everything to that point to gain length in the back. Opposite side, we did the exact same thing, a mirror image. Brought that to the side, then went back through vertically in the center, brought everything in and just cut a straight up and down, keeping the length in the nape, removing some of this weight right here just beneath the crown. Now we're going to work up above the crown. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to take horizontal sections from the side. So when I say that, it's technically it's a vertical section of the top. So I'm taking a section from the side, combing everything to my opposite. Okay. Lifting the hair, pulling straight out. The hair at the mastoid bone, the piece that we had created a stationary guide right here, this is going to be my guide. I'm pulling this out. And by cutting slightly triangular, what I'm doing is I'm gaining just a little bit of length through over direction, which in turn gains a little bit of length in the front. So if you see as I comb this down, it's gained a little bit of length through the front. Okay. I'm going to continue working and bringing all of this hair over. From here, I'm combing up once again. I find my guide from the underneath. It's connected here at the mastoid. It's disconnected through the front. And it's just slightly longer. I'm not making this an extreme A-line effect. If I make that an extreme A-line effect, it's very doable, but the way that I'm going to end up styling this, it would just be way too heavy in the front. Going down. Okay. You can see it's longer in the front, but we're going to end up styling this up and back, which ends up making it a lot more usable if we don't make it extremely long in the front. I'm going to do the opposite on the right side. Just a mirror image. So a vertical section through the front, we're going to pull it out horizontally. We're going to find the piece right here at the mastoid, my corner piece. I'm going to cut just slightly triangular. And when I say triangular, I mean getting longer towards the front. There's three classic shapes you can create in hair cutting. Hair can either be shorter in the front, longer in the back, the way that the underneath is of this mullet. It can either be longer in the front, shorter in the back, which would be triangular, like it is, like the top of this is, or it could be square, where it's the same length through the front and the back. We're working with a little bit of a round shape on the underneath and a little bit of a triangular shape on the top. From here, bringing this over. And I've cut both sides back and forth past center, which will end up giving me a little bit of extra weight in the top, right in the center, and we're going to take that off now. So if I've just cut this top all to this side and then all to this side, I've created a point towards the top, correct? So if I pull this up vertically, you can see there's a point in the center, okay? I'm gonna take some of that off. I don't want that much weight. So the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna start in the center at the crown. I'm gonna take a Mohawk section. So when I say a Mohawk section, it's a central part, or central section, parted on the right and left. That now looks like a mohawk. Okay? I am going to now take that weight off. Did I graduate the very top layer when you brought it over? Technically, yes, it is graduated right now. The reason it is graduated is because when I pulled this over to the right and pulled it over to the left, the longest point is in the center. Therefore, it does have slight graduation. Now, what I'm going to do through the top is actually take that off. I'm going to flatten it out by taking that Mohawk section that I just showed everyone. I'm going to take that, pull it up vertically, take the hair on the underneath as my guide, and I'm going to cut this short to long. I'm taking off a good bit of weight. And you can see it's still longer towards the front, which is what I wanted to create, but now it's no longer graduated and built up with a point in the center. And I'll tell you, I do this haircut very frequently right now, at least a couple times a day when I'm working in our barber shop. And everything has just been sandwiched into the center. It's just a stationary guide. Very, very simple technique on the top to take off this extra weight. Okay, so at this point, I'm now going to dry. So I already put a little bit of that pomade in the hair that I had mentioned before. I'm going to put just a touch more through the top to give it a little bit of hold because I am going to blow dry this up and back. So I'm taking just a touch more. You see, maybe a dime size. Rubbing it in my hands really good and fingering it through. So one thing I'm really big about with product is I don't like to just clump it on the hair. I like to actually run it through the hair with my fingers, take some more off with my palms, put the palms throughout. That way it gets a little more even throughout the hair. I also like to comb product through the hair. I don't like hair to just be, I don't like my product to just sit on the hair. I like it to be more even. A friend of mine named Brandon told me a long time ago when we were talking about curly hair, he said, you know, curly hair looks the best when it's consistent from the root all the way to the ends. So I think the same thing with straight hair and smooth hair. I think it looks the best when it's the most consistent shine, the most consistent finish all the way from the scalp to the ends. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you do a good blow dry with product evenly on it. A lot of times at this point, you see people in barbershops say, all right, you're done. I don't think people are done when their hair is wet. I think you need to go back through and do more. I would say 99.9% of the time with my male clients, I actually blow dry their hair. A couple of guys I do have that have really curly hair and it's fairly short. They don't want it dried all the way, so what I'll do is I'll just diffuse it very quickly. Alright, so I'm taking a vest brush and just blow drying everything up and over. I'm just going to blow dry everything back and forth through a classic wrap. And especially with something that's a little bit edgier, like a mullet, you really want to make sure that you do a great job blow drying, because the finish makes it look, if you finish something really well that's a little edgier, it looks kind of chic, it looks like a little more couture. If you do a poor finish, it just looks like, you know, this is just some weird, crazy haircut. So now that I've wrapped this most of the way, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to take horizontal sections through the top, and I'm going to leaf this hair back. Almost dry. Alright, got a couple of questions coming in now. Really super demo, thank you. Oh, thank you, Lisa, I appreciate that. So from here, what we're doing now is we now need to refine this shape and make it just look even better. It's a very pretty shape, or I mean a very cool shape, I should say. I don't know if the word pretty really wants to go into it, but it's a very cool, nice, you know, very wearable mullet. But now I want to refine it, make it a little bit stronger, a little bit better. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take out a little bit of weight, and I'm going to do that a couple of different ways. So when you're dealing with longer hair, I have a tendency to really like to point cut versus using, like, say, like my texturizers. I have a tendency to just go through vertically, elevate a little bit more, and take some off. You know, so if this was long hair, I would be coming through vertically, elevating just a touch higher, you know, taking this extra weight off, and then pointing into it. But something I like doing now with shorter hair, especially disconnected hair, like the sides are, I like to actually use another tool. These are my texturizing shears. These are the Van Michael texturizing shears, and they actually have a blunt blade. This solid blade isn't sharp, so you're able to slice through the hair without pulling. So now what I do, that doesn't mean you don't open and close. It doesn't mean you just drag the shear through the hair. But what I do is I like to do two things. I like to comb all of this hair over. I like to come to on the underneath where it's quite short. And I like to scissor over comb my transition. From there, all of this hair is combed away from me, the top and the back where it's a little bit longer. So I'm going to do some slicing. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to cut in the direction that the hair is combed. The hair is combed up and over, so I'm going to slice up and over. Slicing up and over, slicing up and over, slicing around the back, slicing down, slicing down, slicing down. You can see I've taken a ton of hair off, and it really adds an amazing finish. I'm going to do just a couple more slices through the back. So what I'll do is I'll flip these around and I'll actually slice down towards myself. So the hair is combed down and back. I'm able to just slice through. These are pretty awesome. These are the 30-tooth blunt blades, and actually ShearBrain is the exclusive distributor of these. So if you ever are interested in getting some, you can just get onto the HairBrain Pro Store, and they have them for sale on there. They also have the shears that I was using, our 5 1/4 Van Michael straight shear, which is a great classic shear. Both are at a very, very reasonable price, and very, very useful shears. I love both of them so much. And I use them all the time, all day in the salons. All right, from here, do just a touch of slicing through the front here. And I'm gonna do one more trick for you guys. This is something that I'm seeing in the barbershop quite a bit. It's a hard part. It's been for a couple of years now. I feel like hard parts have really been in, especially with kind of pompadour-esque looks. So the way that I create a hard part is I want to make sure it's a straight line. I don't want it to be a negative line at all. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to make the hard part where my disconnection begins. So I'm combing the underneath down, combing the top up, and I'm going to clip that hair away so that I can see what I'm working with cleanly. So the long hairs I'm clipping away. I then will strengthen up this corner right here in the front. And I'm going to put a part right here, a hard part. So I like to actually use a comb. A comb is a straight line, right? So that makes my line straight. So what I will do is I comb this hair down, let it sit right against the hair, and then set in my part. Then I will flip my clippers over, the trimmers over, and come back the opposite way. So now, I got a nice clean part that, especially once I put a little bit of clay, this is called Grooming Clay, very, very matte finish. I already got a little bit of shine out of the, off of the pomade. Rubbing this in my hands really good. And you can see it's, makes my hands really, fingering this hair back. These sides lay down. And then using a brush, or another thing that I've been using a lot. Actually, a friend of mine in Knoxville, Tennessee, his name's Frank Gambuza. He gave me one of these combs right here. These are YS Park combs. You can get these on the Hairbrain site as well, but they're a wide tooth comb, and they really like to, if you've put some clay in the hair, they're really good for showing off, you know, your sectioning and your textured lines in the head. So just kind of comb this all down, comb that back, comb my mullet around, and then we give it just a touch of spray. So, like I had mentioned before, I'm seeing a lot of mullets in the barbershop and in the salons right now. I feel like, especially with this new Elvis movie being such a hit, you're going to see a lot more of something more along these lines, where it's kind of a pompadour-esque mullet as opposed to just a real hardcore kind of, you know, not too much of the hardcore kind of like shave the sides and then leave the top spiky. I think you're going to see a little bit more of this pompadour-esque look coming on. All right, so that is I'm gonna wrap it up now, but you can see we've got a nice, you know, pompadour-esque top, very short sides with a nice hard part, and then we got our little mullet going. So really, just to reiterate, vertical section starting at the front hairline, working those flat until you end up hitting the mastoid bone, making a completely straight line so that you maintain length at the bottom. Over direct everything to that point. Opposite side, same mirror image. Then we're going to work to the mastoid bone, bring everything in as well. Then what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up working through the back, flattening it out with a vertical section in the center, and through the top we disconnected using the hair at the mastoid bone as our guide to create a triangular section through the front. Then squared off the top, so that because we had gained length by over directing to each side, that ended up giving us this nice pompadour, and then I just finished it off with a hard part. So for those of you who logged on, thank you so much. It was great to see everybody.